What should be the point where they should start thinking about saving money?
I mean, without a discipline, you will not be able to save anything, whatever be your salary.
My monthly net expenses today is just 3,000 dirhams.
Should a person have credit card with 5,000 salary?
There are people who end up taking loans to pay the loans, and it is a debt trap.
Credit is, like I said, a double-edged sword, right? If you don't know what credit is and how it works, you're going to fail miserably. But if you know how to use it, you can end up saving more money.
I saved 100k dirham per year and now I want to invest.
Mutual funds has happened to be the most famous and exploding financial product, I'd say, in the last 2 to 5 years.
Not the whole of the investment should go in one stream. I mean, you should not put all your eggs in one basket.
Like if I am coming from India to UAE, I am dealing with something called taxation.
For your incomes which are being earned in India. This applies for the non-resident India.
There are very few chartered accountants, even in India, that understand NRI laws. I get a high when I save money. लेकिन चाय उतने की ही मिलेगी. चाय का भाव नहीं बढ़ा.
Hi guys, welcome to podcast Founders Talk with Ayub. Today we will be talking about personal finance from the perspective of expats living in the UAE. UAE contains the largest population of expats, around 85%. People come to UAE to earn money and send back home, create their wealth, but unfortunately, whatever they earn is being spent or their expenses are higher than what they are earning. We have with us Kasim.
Chartered accountant from India. I have almost 14 years of experience now. Also, I did my EAAA from UAE as well. I have been dealing in the taxes in and out, and I have a multidisciplinary chartered accountant firm back in India, and also I'm practicing here in UAE.
And Rishi.
SaaS sales seller here in Dubai. I work for a remote software company. I shifted here for tax purposes. As everyone knows, Dubai is the land of no taxes.
How an expat living in Dubai can save some money doesn't matter what they are earning.
So I think anyone that comes to a city like Dubai, of course, has saving as one of their goals, right?
Mm.
I wanted to save taxes, right? That's why I came here. That's definitely adding on to the money that I end up having at the end of every month. But then Dubai is also a very expensive city, right? You have rent when you have to pay to your house, you have food expenses, all the basic expenses that you would typically have, but it's a very expensive city. But I've also come to realize that there are pockets and places where you can end up finding cheap and affordable offers in all matters, for example, right? So you wouldn't believe this, but my monthly net expenses today is just 3,000 dirhams, right? And when I searched on ChatGPT on what's the average, it's 5,000 dirhams. ChatGPT says you can't live on 3,000 dirhams, right? So that's kind of what I got and what I understood. It seems like I am doing really well when it comes to saving money. And about myself, I happen to be a fairly stingy
Mm.
or a frugal person, you can say, which means I get a high when I save money. So I'm very particular about tracking how much I spend, where I spend, and also making sure I've budgeted X amount for what I'm spending on. So let's say, for example, out of those 3,000 dirhams, 800 to 1,000 dirhams happens to be my expenses for food, right? And after every meal, I log it on the application to make sure this is how much I have had. So at the end of the month, I can look at how much I've spent, right? So to your question, if a person is shifting to a country like Dubai where they're getting a better offer than their home country and want to save money, I think it definitely starts at intent and discipline, right?
Mm.
Because this is also a city of bling, right? Which means there are so many exciting things out there that can capture your attention and it's very easy to spend money, right? So you'll have to be a little disciplined when it comes to that and also make sure you remember the goal that you're here for, which is to save money and hopefully eventually build wealth, because I'm hoping if you're here and if you have family back home, you're also sending money back there, right? But I think we should discover this topic more. I'm curious what
Hmm.
Kasim has to say about that.
Well, after hearing the Rishi, I can frame an image of a very ideal boy coming to a city, saving a lot, and then building empires back in the home country. Obviously, a disciplined approach is very much required. I mean, without a discipline, you will not be able to save anything, whatever be your salary.
Hmm.
Maybe you earning a 50,000 dirhams per month, or you may be earning 5,000 dirhams per month. If you are not disciplined, if you're not budgeting your expenses, then obviously you're not going to save anything. Secondly, what is the purchase power parity? I mean, we are getting, suppose a karak, we are getting that for 20 rupees back in our home country, but here we are getting it for 1 dirham. So that makes us spend more. I mean, when I go to purchase a phone, it is only 2000 dirhams. So that gives a little pain to me.
Hmm.
While when I go in my home country to purchase a phone, Apple iPhone, I'll be end up spending 55,000 rupees or 70,000 rupees. So that pain is missing in here, which we should keep in mind. That is one important thing I always feel.
Will not it cause something like all the time you're juggling? I spend 25 dirham, I spend 30 dirham, I spend 100 dirham, 200 dirham, and then you're counting, oh, what is the Indian conversion of it? Is it like you're all the time you're juggling in between? Initially, I was doing like that. Oh, I spend 2000, I spend
100%.
1500. And then I was trying to convert into rupee, and it was like what I'm doing all the time. Like you don't feel comfortable doing that. But of course, this could be one thing that probably,
Of course, when someone recently shifts here, na, he always do this juggling.
yeah.
But over the period of time, you don't. But even then, you have to realize what the amount you are spending
Hmm,
from your earnings.
hmm,
You have to realize that thing. So the best part is you have to set up your budgets.
hmm,
You have to set up your budgets for the rent, for your splurging, for your conveyance, for everything. You may not be visiting it every day, but you should be visiting it every 15 days, maybe a week,
hmm.
maybe in 15 days, or maybe monthly. So that is up to you. And then you have to check for your variances. I mean, if I have set apart 1000 for splurging, did I overspend from that? And if I did, then I should be adjusting it in the next month. So that only when you are able to make a budget, you will end up saving something. Else you will be spending. You will not have a track of your expenses. How will you manage them?
Yeah, I think what Kasim is saying is very interesting, and you bring
Hmm,
this point. I think is the sense of money, because we're
hmm,
talking about someone who comes to the city of Dubai and they really don't know what is what,
hmm,
right? How do you even set up a budget if you don't know what is cheap and what is expensive,
hmm,
right? So I used to do this exactly as you're saying as well. Anyone who comes in here, they're trying to convert it into their home currency and see, okay, is this cheap or expensive? Because I don't know what 10 dirhams mean or 50 dirhams mean, right? Once you get a sense of that money value,
hmm.
right, that is when you can actually start doing it properly. But even then, for starters, I think just converting and seeing what the currency, it helps you, right?
So, like, technically, you're not making the value of money realization if you're not doing that. But of course, yeah. Oh, another thing which is coming to my mind, like, you can think when you're thinking about income, you can think in dirham or dollars. And when you're spending, you can do it in your home currency. This could be another thing. Talking about, we talked about disparity. So I tell you about myself. When I started off my career, I was of the opinion like if you will earn more, then you have to save some money. Right now, I'm earning very low, like 5,000 dirham, 6,000 dirham, 7,000. What will I save out of it? But is it the mindset or is it something like when you're earning high, then you can save? How do you see that? Like,
As I started, that there has to be a discipline. Even if you're earning 50,000 dirhams, you will not end up saving anything.
hmm,
And even if you're earning 7,000 dirhams, you will end up saving something for you. It all depends on what you have in your mind. If I have a salary of 50,000 dirhams per month, I'll go purchase a Bugatti or a Ferrari,
hmm,
and there my savings will vanish. Or if I have a salary of only 7,000 dirhams, I'll go live in a rent where I will be paying a rent of 1,500 dirhams only instead of taking a 3,000 dirham one.
hmm.
So it's all about the mindset, Ayub.
I think it's also about this concept of affordability. What can you afford, right? Just because I have money to pay for it, does it mean that I can buy it, right? Affording something and having the money to pay for it are, I think, two very separate things. And the moment you realize that just because you have 100 dirhams, you can't spend all of it, that's when you actually realize that you can start saving this money, right? And this affordability factor applies to a person at the bottom who is probably earning an average of 5,000, which is what everyone earns when they first come to the city, versus anyone who's actually made it their way up, right? And like Kasim said, it depends on what their practices are and if they're disciplined about it. That's what I'd say.
Just adding to what Rishi has said, of late, you notice that finances has become really easy. I mean, securing a finance.
Hmm.
You have your credit cards, you have the easy loans and everything. So here is the important thing where affordability comes. I mean, I can, based on my income eligibility, I can get a loan of suppose 500,000 dirhams.
Hmm.
But then I need to look about it. Do I be able to pay it in the long run? Do I have the sufficient backup? Or I'm just having a only relying on my salary. What if it hampers someday?
Hmm.
Then what I'll be doing? So it has to be an affordability.
Hmm.
Is a very important thing which Rishi mentioned.
Kasim and Rishi, both of you, how do you see short term versus long term? Because what you mentioned, Kasim, people are thinking about debt without taking responsibility of it or without any backup. I need credit card. I need short term loan. So many people would be out there and they don't have any backing. First, how they can create a backup for the loan? You can take loan for any emergencies. And second, is it good to have a loan? Can you use your backup instead of taking a loan?
I think I'll say this, right? We need to understand who we're dealing with here. If we're saying the person doesn't understand the concept of affordability, there is no way they're going to understand the concept of credit. Give someone 20,000 dirhams as a limit and they'll go spend it all. And they don't even have 5,000 dirhams in their bank account, right? And that's what makes it very dangerous, is to take credit when you really don't understand it, right? And you're right, and what Kasim said as well is also right, that it's very easy to get credit here in Dubai. And here is what happens, right? Today we're trying to talk about how someone can save and eventually build wealth, but when credit comes into the picture, it's a double edged sword.
Mm,
And now it's not about working your way up, it pushes you down into this pit hole where you're in a debt trap if you use it wrong even once, right? And all it takes is one mistake. And I remember you and me, we were having this conversation the other day about credit altogether, where you said we need to be mindful about who gets credit
mm.
and the people need to understand how credit is used, right? And let's just talk about credit cards because they're the most popular financial product out there, right?
Just adding one thing.
Yeah,
Most of the people opening their account with several banks just because they will get credit card
right.
while they open the account.
No, but what is credit, right? That's what they don't understand.
Hmm,
They feel credit card gives them purchasing power,
hmm,
right? They feel credit card allows them to afford things that they actually can't. And that is a negative impact on their numbers.
hmm.
Now, I'm no longer saving money. I, in fact, owe money to the bank, right? I've worked my way backwards. I'm not building wealth.
You increase the expenses.
100.
Hmm,
So, beyond expenses, I
hmm.
am spending money that I don't have. How am I going to pay back the bank? And I haven't even started talking about the interest that starts piling up. It eventually leads to a place where you can't pay the money that you owe to the bank.
But I remember, Rishi, when we were talking about it,
Hmm.
you were strongly favoring having the credit card just because of the cashbacks. Like you can get the cashback, you can get the
Now,
discounts, so many things.
that is
And
interesting because, and one of the reasons why I'm
hmm,
doing this conversation with you is credit is, like I said, a double edged sword,
hmm.
right? If you don't know what credit is and how it works, you're going to fail miserably. But if you know how to use it, you can end up saving more money in each one of your spends if you're smart about it, right? If you're paying on time, if you know which credit cards to get, if you know what your limit is and how much should you actually be spending, right? So a person who is already very thoughtful about their finances, who's doing budgeting, who's doing tracking, and they're spending money, they know what they're doing. Instead of paying by cash, if they were to pay by a credit card, they'd end up saving money. That's where credit comes in, right? Credit card shouldn't allow you to go and make impulse purchases. Unfortunately, that is the business model of credit cards. That's what they want you to do. When they give you money, free money in your hands and say, go spend it, they want you to get into the debt trap, right? That's how they make money.
Rishi, I will make it simple. Should a person have credit card with 5,000 salary?
I think that's a very black and white question. It depends. Let us say this 5,000 dirham earning person who
Hmm.
has reached Dubai has now a hold of their finances, right? They're able to save 1,000 dirhams. They know where they're spending their money. They have a proper budget of everything. And they know they spend this much in groceries, they spend this much in rent, and they spend this much in transport, right? And if they can make the same spend using credit cards, they'll end up saving a lot more. So, yeah, I think they deserve it as long as they know how to use it.
I know you have a very strong discipline, Rishi, in terms of managing your own finances. But majority of the people, they are driven by the consumer mindset. They take credit card to enjoy some more luxuries. We all know that.
Correct.
So that is why I believe the people who have 5,000 salary or below that, they cannot afford it because it will eventually add up a lot of expenses and they will be closer to a default. And most of the banks, probably we can have them and we can look at the history. The people with the low threshold, they are not able to pay back. So that was my logic. Like they should not have it.
I think if you're saying that they should not get credit cards, I'm saying it depends. I'll put it in a very simple manner.
Hmm.
You can use a knife to cut vegetables and make the greatest dish that tastes amazing, or you can use it to hurt someone. It depends if you know how to use the knife. That's all. So it's an education and enablement problem.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I agree with you that the
Hmm.
reality is that the business model and the product in itself wants you to spend money that you don't have. But if the consumer is smart, they'll be on the positive end of it.
People can do best if they have discipline, they can be educated, awareness has to be created. But how many people can take that education seriously? Hmm.
What I would be curious about is because Kasim here is a CA, he's
Hmm.
probably looked at a lot of people's bank statements.
Hmm.
So he would know where people are spending and if they're paying their credit card. So I'm curious to hear about that.
Yes, I have seen a lot of bank statements. I have seen a lot of finances of the persons. But I have a mixed experience. I have those clients who have a wonderful financial discipline. They are taking the credit card just to have the benefit of the cashbacks, like the Rishi said.
Hmm.
So they are very much only the disciplined persons will take the credit card for the benefit of cashbacks.
Hmm. Hmm.
Undisciplined ones will take it for the benefit of the limits. So
It will drive them
it
further.
will drive you
Yeah.
towards
Yeah.
overspending and to the luxurious spending.
But you've
Hmm.
probably seen both,
I
right?
have seen both type of cases in my career. There
Mm.
are people who end up taking loans to pay the loans,
Hmm.
and it is a debt trap.
They are
They are
taking
taking
loans to
loans
pay
to
off the
repay the
loans.
loans. So
That's
what happens that once the cat is behind the rat, but at
hmm.
the end of the game,
It's like
the
a
rat is
spiral.
behind the cat.
Like
So this is how it
hmm.
happens, and they just end up a very pathetic situation.
Hmm.
In a very pathetic situation, what happens at the end of the day, every banker is calling you and
Hmm.
harassing you
Hmm.
for the recovery, and it
Yeah.
is very much mental pain and harassment.
But I think this is true globally, right?
Yeah.
This is not
Yeah.
just for Dubai.
Yes, this is true globally.
The advantage in Dubai, I will say this, is it's a very early market
Hmm.
for financial products, right? Uh, in India, back home, we have something called the CIBIL score, which measures the credit worthiness of a person. Only on that basis are you offered a credit card. Here in Dubai, that same score was, I think, just recently launched in the last 1 or 2 years, right? And it hasn't even matured yet, which is why we're saying even a 5,000 dirham person can get a credit card,
Hmm.
right? So that is where it stands. So maybe the market also needs to mature. But in that sense, anyone can make a mess of a credit card irrespective of where they are. Dubai happens to be at an advantage because it's an early market. You're getting really good offers on credit cards. Where can you save 8 to 10% on your net expenses? There's not a lot of credit cards that do offer that, right? On average, I can save 5% if I use a multitude of credit cards and say this is for travel, this is for groceries, and this is for transport.
How much are you saving at the moment, Rishi? And how many credit cards you have at the moment?
I have a bunch of credit cards.
Hmm.
On net average, I'm saving about anywhere from 8 to 15%
Hmm.
across all types of spends in different categories using my credit cards, right? I
That's
will also share that I happen to save 85% of what I earn overall. So my net expenses total in hand is 15%, and I don't have to count taxes because I don't pay any, right? That happens to be the advantage of what Dubai has to offer, which is why I wanted to have this conversation with you when you talked about this is you can build
hmm.
wealth or work towards building wealth in Dubai if you play your cards right.
Dubai is a good place. Like it, there's no income tax. It's completely healthy for you to take back
Take
all
back
of your
whatever
money,
you earn.
whatever you are earning, either on business or salary. It's definitely a very good place to start with and begin with. Coming to you, Rishi, you talked about saving through credit cards. So we end up having this conversation like you should have a good credit score, and if you have a good credit score, meaning you are a responsible citizen, or you will be paying back. So I'm curious to know how this credit score is being measured. What is the way?
I think it depends, honestly. I don't know about how Dubai does it, but it depends on how much of your limit do you use
Hmm.
back in India, how much do you pay back, and how often do you pay back, and do you pay back the full amount. So there are some metrics that are associated with it. There are some best practices towards using a credit card.
S- So you are saying if
Mhm,
I need a loan or anything from
mhm.
the
Correct.
bank will not ask me about my bank statement to give me the loan, but they will look at my credit score and they will
So
give me the
think
money.
about it this way, right? You get in the door starting to have a conversation if you have a credit score. They won't even entertain a conversation with you if you don't have a proper credit score,
Hmm.
right? What you're talking about is additional validation on this is my bank statement, this is my guarantor, and things like that. If you want a loan today back home in India, the first thing they're going to look at is credit score. And if your credit score is good enough, they're not going to ask for anything else.
Like irrespective of the threshold, like you have 5,000 or 50,000, your credit score might be the reflection of your behavior, consumer behavior.
Correct.
Are
Indeed.
you
Right.
able to give
Indeed.
back irrespective how good your bank statement is? Maybe in the future, this could be a possibility. Like uh, they will look at the credit score, they will tell about your
I
behavior,
think
and they
that's
will
how
say,
it works.
yeah,
And you're 100% right. You
yeah,
don't have to earn more to have a better credit score.
yeah.
Even if you have a very simple credit card for just 5,000 dirhams and you're spending only 200 dirhams every month, but you're paying it back on time every month without any interest, right? And you're using it in the right way, you'll
Technically,
have a
this
good
is the
credit score.
bank need or any credit institution need, like a guarantee, like you will pay back.
They're
This
just
is,
testing user
yeah,
consumer
yeah,
behavior, right? Like
yeah.
they feel this person can pay.
Hmm. That's. I think future is like that. This is what I see.
Also, on top of credit, I think one topic that we should touch on is, let us say now this person has come to Dubai,
Hmm.
right? They have started saving money. They have also become disciplined and they're saving more with credit cards. Now, what do they do with this pile of cash that they
Hmm.
have saved, right? I think investing is also something that people talk a lot about. In fact, back home in India, mutual funds has happened to be the most famous and exploding financial product, I'd say, in the last 2 to 5 years, right? Everyone has mutual funds, everyone is investing in equity, right? So, what are your options here in Dubai? I think I'd like to hear from Kasim on that. Maybe he has a better idea.
Yes. So there are a lot of options available for the investments here in Dubai, and it is not just limited to Dubai. You can be investing anywhere in the world, sitting here. So investment could be, see, the investment depends on your risk appetite, first of all. What is my risk appetite? Am I a dynamic person? Am I ready to take a hell lot of risk? Or I want a moderate risk? Or I don't want any risk? If I don't want any risk, I'll just put it back in the savings account or a fixed deposit account with the bank and earn some 2% per month per annum. That is what. And if I have some risk appetite, I may go invest in some metals where I have some promising returns, where I can see that they are going to give some promising returns in the next 6 months or a year, as the global markets say. Or I can have a very dynamic approach and I could be investing in the cryptos. So it all depends on the dynamic, the risk appetite of the consumer.
And again, there are no taxes on any of these investments, right?
Yes, not here in Dubai. Till the time you are an NRI, there are no taxes if you are investing from your Dubai income and anywhere out of India. But if you are investing back in India, then there are implications. You have to take note of all those them.
But
Like the Rishi said, the mutual funds, those have their own sweet implications of the taxes in India, back in India.
Thank you, Kasim. The question that is coming to my mind, like, because we are talking about everybody who is earning something, who came to Dubai and earning something, they deserve to save some money. They might be earning anywhere between 2,000, 2,500 to 50,000 or maybe 100,000 per month. What should be the point where they should start thinking about saving money?
Every
The
point.
time they earn their first dirham.
Yes, every point.
Every
If you
point.
don't save, you can't
You
build
should,
wealth.
at least you should have that mindset that you need to save.
Hmm.
When you have that mindset, even if you're earning, suppose 1000 dirhams, you will set up at least 10 dirhams for the savings. You will spend 990. I don't have any problem with that. But at least you will end up saving 10 dirhams. And this mindset is important. When you start earning more, you start keeping aside that amount for your savings. And that is how your portfolio builds up. Any good portfolio does not build up overnight. It takes a lot of time and efforts and years to build a good and handsome portfolio for yourself,
So the
which we
first
call
step
retirement
is,
planning.
yeah, the first step is I should start saving. Even I'm 5 dirham, 10 dirham, no matter what your salary is, start saving some money.
Like I said, you need to save at every point. And that's why we said if you've started saving, what happens with the money that you've saved, right? Where do you
But
invest?
I'm coming with the pain point. I'm earning 2,000, 3,000, or 5,000. I have more expenses. I need to send back money home. I have expenses of living, accommodation. I might be paying for some other rents like travel. How can I save money?
See, there is always going to be fixed costs. Like I
Hmm.
said, here in Dubai, it's an expensive city. You need to figure out how you can reduce your fixed cost or minimize and optimize for it, right? You can pay 4,000 dirhams for a room, or you can pay 2,000 dirhams for a room. It depends on where you are. Today, we're talking about the city of Dubai. I
Hmm.
happen to be a remote worker. I can work anywhere from the UAE. Why don't I just go and sit in Sharjah, right? I'll be paying half or maybe even less of what I'm paying here in Dubai.
But if I go to Sharjah, my travel cost will increase.
No, but then if you're talking about this specific person who happens to travel from
Hmm.
Sharjah to Dubai, which is very specific,
Hmm.
you need to relook how much you're earning, right? If you're saying there is no way I can reduce my expenses and I make too less, then it's not about how much you can save. You need to go and find a new job that pays you more, right? I am talking about where it makes sense to reduce your expenses and have that margin where you're saving money, right? You always have options to save money, right? Think about it this way: you go and have a tea every day, right? You and me, we have tea. Here's what you do: you order 2 cups of tea. I order 1 cup of tea and ask to split it in two, right? The experience is almost the same. Never have you come and told me every day and said, hey, I feel like I've had less tea, right? You've never said that. We've had the same conversation. We've ended up sitting for 15 minutes, right? But here's what happened: you spent 5 dirhams on 2 cups. I spent 2.5 dirhams on 1 cup, right? That's the difference. So you can save if you want to. It just depends on your intent. Second, if it happens to be a person who has looked at all the options and there's no way I can save money, then brother, you need to look at if you can find another job that pays you more, or maybe this is not the right time for you to shift into expensive city like Dubai.
I agree with you, Rishi. I have friends who are earning around 100,000 per 100K per month, and they are not able to cover their expenses because the moment you earn more, you increase your lifestyle, you increase your expenses, your the peer pressure, your circle, it is changing as you are earning more. How can I handle peer pressure? Like I have certain class like after earning 100K, like
Like
it's,
Kasim
it's
said, like discipline and mindset, I would say,
right.
right?
See, with respect to savings, Ayub, I would like to add this that there has to be pressure.
Hmm.
Unless and until there's a pressure of something, you will not do it.
I think
See,
he means
we
individual
when
pressure
we
that you need to save.
when we take a bank loan, we have the pressure of the EMIs.
Hmm.
Anyhow, we try that that should not be bunked. That should be honored every month. So that is what the pressure is.
That pressure should be internal, or it
Correct.
could be your wife.
It it can be internal, obviously. I mean, now that depends on your goals.
Makes sense. So I think savings are important. It's the second step. Like you need to save, and then you will start earning more out of it. The goal is like you have to have some passive income out of what you are earning.
I think
So,
passive income still is very far away. If you're talking about a person who has just figured out saving,
hmm,
even if he just saves for 1 year,
hmm,
he's good. Let it sit in the bank. But let that person do saving for 1 year and 12 months and say, I have saved.
hmm,
Once you've built a pot, like he
hmm,
said, portfolio, right? Now I want to grow my money, and let's say we want to beat inflation, which is, let's say, what, 6-7% on average, right? And again, I want to share this, and this is something I've realized. Kasim, correct me if I'm wrong. Inflation doesn't work at a general level. So let us say inflation happened over the last year. That doesn't mean everything
Yes,
increased in price from 7%. It depends commodity to commodity. Suddenly सबका price नहीं बढ़ जाएगा, right? So there is
absolutely.
this fake fear that has been created by financial products out there in the market that your money is dying by just sitting in the bank, which is actually not the reality. It depends, right? And that is what you need to understand.
Kasim, I would love to hear you on it.
See, obviously, what Rishi has pointed out that inflation is not general. I mean, it is not like 7% is going to increase in each and everything. But at the same time, you need to be earning something that is a kind of a benchmark rate for you,
Hmm.
which you should try to beat on your personal level. That gives you a kind of a benchmark, a thing to compete. Obviously, like Rishi said, your money is safe in the bank and it is sitting there. Obviously, it is sitting there and it is earning at least 1% or 2% per annum.
So there's
But
no
when I'm
devaluation to the money with like there's no impact of inflation on that.
see,
What do you say?
its purchasing power is getting reduced every year.
Correct.
Hmm.
If I'm able to afford a car of 100,000 dirhams this year, my 100,000 dirhams are in the bank.
Hmm.
Next year, when I go to purchase that car, it won't come for 100,000 dirhams. It will go for 120,000 dirhams, and I will be having only 100,000 dirhams in my bank account.
लेकिन चाय उतने की ही मिलेगी, चाय का भाव नहीं बढ़ा. So it depends.
But there,
Hmm.
there would be shrinkflation. The quantity of tea will reduce.
Correct. Possible. Agreed. Which is what happens in a lot of consumer
Yes.
products. So I
Shrinkflation is
remember
another
back
thing.
in the day, I used to have Kit Kats, used to get 4 wafers, and it was just 10 rupees. Today, you get hardly, I don't even think you get Kit Kat for 10 rupees anymore back home in India.
And the quality is also compromised on some
Yeah.
That's
products.
what
Like I
shrinkflation
don't see
is.
that quality which we used to have. So yeah, I think inflation has an impact, but inflation should not hamper your savings. Like you should save money in the bank easily. You can save that money, and the bottom line is at the end of the day, at the end of the year, you have something to invest somewhere
Correct.
where you can earn passive income. So the next question is where I can invest this money to give me some passive income so that I can increase my income.
So I think this is what Kasim kind of shared, right? There's multiple different markets that you can invest in.
Hmm.
One of the main advantages of you being in Dubai, of course, not having to pay taxes, but you get access to global markets. You can invest in the US, you can invest in Europe, you can invest pretty much anywhere from
Anywhere.
here, right? Dubai is the gateway to the world. When you come to Dubai and you've started saving money and now you're thinking about investment, you become a global citizen, right? That's what happens. So there's multitude of options. I'll share a little bit about myself, right, in that terms.
Hmm.
I have been investing in the Indian equity market since the age of 60, right? I've lost money and I've made money, right? But in general, there's a lot of financial products out there. And if we're talking about having this conversation for a person that has just started invest saving money and wants to invest, they should start small, right? Like Kasim was sharing
What is
earlier.
that small? What
Yeah.
do you mean by
So
small?
like you don't want to be dynamic and you don't
Yeah.
want to chase huge returns.
Hmm.
Like don't expect 20% returns on your initial investment, for example. You first of all you should know
No,
what is an
I'm
average
asking you
return.
what should be that small amount of money?
Yeah, again, just because you have 20,000 dirhams saved doesn't mean you invest all 20,000,
Hmm.
right? You still need to keep the pot, right? And you take away from it so you can invest. Now, this is where goals are very important. You mentioned passive income, but another goal can be just to keep increasing the pot,
Hmm.
right? Because I think the goal for passive income then becomes that this helps me with my cash flow,
Hmm.
right? But if I'm planning a retirement or I want to buy a house or I want to buy a car, I need to save and grow that money. So let us say without investing, it would take me 2 years to buy a house. With investing, it'll take me 1.5 years. So that time gets reduced and I'm getting to my goal much faster. That's the logic. So you need to set your goal on what you want. Accordingly, you take the right amount of money. So let us do this with an example. I want to buy a car,
Hmm.
let us say, here in Dubai. Well, before buying a car, I actually need to get a license, which is also expensive. But to do all of this, my overall expenditure is somewhere around 40,000 dirhams, right? And I today only have 8,000 dirhams in my bank account. I want to invest. So I'd probably take 50% of it and invest it. Now, where do I invest it? There's actually a bunch of options. I can invest in the equity market here in Dubai, right? There's exchanges like ADX and these kind of companies from Dubai that have listed, which actually increase in share prices as well, just like how the Indian equity market works. Or I can invest in the US markets as well, right? That is also possible. Or real estate, which is what Dubai is known very well for, they've actually now worked on fractionalizing real estate. So you could own a piece of property by just paying 100 dirhams, for example, right? So when you buy a house, and these companies that do buy a house, they give it up for rent, you end up getting the rent in that small fragment, right? So if a 100,000 dirham house is bought and it's going for rent for 2,000 dirhams every month, and you own a piece of it, you get 20 dirhams every month, for example, let's say, right? So depending on the goal, you make the investments and go for it. But the ideal logic is, even if you put it in bank, it'll grow by 2 to 3%, or fixed deposits that can give you from 5 to 6%, depending on the bank as well. So again, you need to know what your goal is. You need to understand how much money you have saved, and then accordingly, based on your appetite, on what Kasim was saying, invest.
Also, while investing, one thing should be kept in my mind that not the whole of the investment should go in one stream. I
Hmm.
mean, you should not put all your eggs in one basket. You should be having a proportion of the investments. I mean, somewhere you will be taking some risk, somewhere you will be taking only the moderate risk, or somewhere you are keeping them highly liquid. Whenever you need them, you just take out your cash out. So you have to plan it this ways as well.
I saved 100K dirham per year and now I want to invest.
Okay.
How can I optimize my return? Where should I invest? Like you mentioned, we need to diversify. How I can create a portfolio and diversify it. And third, which is related to this, how can I identify which money I can take back and which will be locked? So probably we I can divide it again. So just go over that.
So ideally, what you should be doing, that you should be setting a proportion of it,
Hmm.
which I would suggest that 25% should be very liquid, highly liquid. So whenever you require it, you can take out. What I mean by highly liquid, it could be you could be having it in your bank account, in the savings bank account, or putting in some investment options. Even here we have some investment options which offer quick pay back to you when so you want to withdraw your money. Then you should have some of the amount you should be investing with a long term perspective where your money is getting locked, maybe 25% again, or maybe for 35%. You can keep it for yourself. I mean, you can decide between yourself, and then balance. Some of it could go to the risk taking ones
Hmm.
where there are dynamic returns, but that should only have a 10 to 15%. That should consist only of 10 to 15% of your portfolio. Then comes about your goal also. If you have some goals, I mean, you want to have a real estate, you might want to have a flat. You may think of saving that through. Now here one more thing comes when we are talking about the loans. That could also be one thing when you can have a loan and have a fixed EMI towards it. This will also go to the savings only
Hmm.
when you're paying the EMI for your flat. So this could also be one option.
So you're saying invest money that returns passive income and counter it with the EMI that you pay for the house?
Yes, yes. I myself do like this. I have a flat. I have bought a flat here in Dubai. I'm getting some rent from it, and exactly my EMI is equivalent to the rent.
So I think what he's saying is very interesting. What you brought up for passive income. Let us say you want to make a big purchase, right? You can't always wait 5 years to save money for that big purchase. So let us say you're able to collect some passive income that you get every month, and let's say your EMI for that big purchase also happens to be somewhere close to that passive income that you make. So both get cancelled out every month, and you slowly work towards that acquiring journey towards that big purchase, which is very common. A lot
Yeah.
of people do is you have investments, and then you also end up having a loan, and the EMIs and the passive income that you have get cancelled out.
So
But
you are having the passive income, and at the same time you are building the wealth.
what would be the amount of loan compared to your total portfolio, Kasim?
Basically, the banks have their own calculation method for that. That
Hmm.
your net disposable income, they calculate your net disposable income after all your obligations, and out
Hmm.
of that, they give you the 50% of that amount as a loan. Now, where your EMI,
Okay.
your EMI should be 50% of that net disposable income.
Right.
That is what
Right.
the criteria of the banks. But I, being a moderate risk taker, I would prefer to have only 25% of that net income paying as an EMI.
So you are reducing your risk.
Yes,
You're
yes.
reducing your risk. So we were talking about like 25% liquidation, like you have liquidity, 25% you locked, 10 to 15% some mid-level
Some
risky
mid level of
portfolio or
aggressive
something like that,
approach funds.
and rest.
Rest, as I said, it can go towards your goal like the EMIs or something,
Hmm.
or again you can have them in the moderate risk portfolio, like the metals. They are a moderate risk thing.
I think all of this depends on the appetite of that person, right? Like
Hmm.
it could be 50-50, it could be 25-25-25-25.
Absolutely depend.
Yeah.
But what we are talking about, the ideal situation we are talking
Hmm.
about.
Hmm.
Hmm. How about gold? Like you talked about metals, like
Yes.
some gold is less riskier, like if they are
Yes,
opting for that.
absolutely, because it is not going to give a super fluctuation in its value.
Hmm.
There will be only a slight, it could give you a negative return, but those will only be a very minimal negative returns.
Hmm.
It will not something, the entire value would be wiped off. That's why it is not that risky
And I think
investment.
it's also very important to point out when I think Kasim says gold, he doesn't mean jewelry,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Absolutely, again.
right?
So
Or else
wives
people are
should
going to
not
go
get
and
happy.
buy, yeah, people are going to go and buy jewelry and say Kasim said we're going to
That
invest
is a
in.
loss making thing. You are paying the hell lot of charges in the makeup charges and
Right.
everything.
Yeah, and Rishi, you mentioned you have been an investor since the age of 17. So, how about the crypto, blockchain, and other digital currencies?
So I'll share my thoughts from the perspective of someone who's, let's say, new,
Hmm.
right? For the people, I think a lot of people understand it today for the
Hmm.
most part, but they still don't know why crypto is crypto and why it's going up, right? And one of the things that Warren Buffett, one of the premier investors, says, I don't invest in something that I don't understand. I
Hmm.
think this rule just generally needs to be applied because, yeah,
Question out of curiosity: Warren Buffett had any investments in crypto or any that kind of assets?
I don't think so
Okay.
for the most part. From what I know, he doesn't have any investments in crypto, right?
Okay.
Maybe I don't.
Based on his quote, looks like he does not have any
Yeah,
investment in crypto.
Okay.
yeah. But generally speaking, the crypto market is very hot,
Hmm.
right? And it is where you have a bunch of tokens or coins that you can invest in, and it's a joke for the most part. Just to be very real, there is no utility or value to most of the cryptocurrencies out there, right? If you go today to any website, let's say Coin Market Cap or things like that, you will see the top 100 coins by valuation. In the top 20 coins itself, there are meme coins.
Hmm.
Meme coins is a very interesting phenomenon where, some internet meme which became famous, someone made a coin out of it and everyone started investing in it, right? So now it has value. If people believe there is value, people invest in it. If we're talking about a person that has just come to Dubai, who has just started saving
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
is investing, I wouldn't really recommend the crypto market unless you feel you're confident and you understand into what you're investing in.
Or if they are already investing in that market.
Right. So if they understand it, it's fine. But if you're investing in crypto, I am hoping you already have your finances set, right?
Hmm.
You know
Hmm.
what your budget looks like, you're spending it in the right way, right? There are so many people that do investing, but they don't have their saving on point,
Hmm.
right? There's also the very high risk takers that end up losing. Fun fact, I actually met one of the early members, and there's this thing called the Bored Ape Yacht Club, which was a very famous NFT group. Where if you bought that NFT, which was very expensive, you were invited to this cohort, and everyone was a millionaire there. I met him in Dubai. He's no longer a millionaire, unfortunately, because the values of NFT stumbled. But that just goes on to tell you that what shines yesterday may not shine today.
Yeah, it's a highly risky.
Correct.
It's highly risky. So I think another question comes to mind. Like people are living from different countries over here, and I was looking at the statistics. Indian population is, I guess, number one in terms of all the expats. Then second Pakistan, and then UK, probably other countries. So there is a thing called double taxation.
Yes.
Like if I am coming from India to UAE, I am dealing with something called taxation
Yes.
back at home country. How can an expat Indian resident can deal with that?
See, as of now, using the word double taxation is not right here because
Okay.
you are not getting taxed in UAE. You are getting taxed back in India, but only for your incomes which are being earned in India. This applies for the non resident Indian, the person who has lived in India for less than 182 days. That is a catch. If you are in India for less than 182 days, or so when I am talking about 182 days period or any period with respect to the Indian income taxes, I am talking about the April to March period year financial year. I'm not talking about January to December
Not
financial
the
year,
calendar year.
not the calendar year. I'm talking about the financial year, which in India is from April to March. So for applicable year in your case, whatever, like the currently we are filing the taxes in India for the financial year 24-25, that is 1st April 24 to 31st March 25. So if any person was in India for less than 182 days, then he is an NRI. Or if he is in India for 60 days in 24-25 and less than 365 days in the preceding 4 financial years,
Hmm.
then again he is an NRI. So this is quite technical,
There are
but
so many
and
nuances to it.
then
Like,
again there are nuances to it. Then there is a nuances with respect to Indian income, how much you are earning there. That also sets your
Is there
status.
a
So
threshold for your Indian income?
yes,
yes,
15
Okay.
lakhs.
yes,
So I'll tell you this.
Hmm.
I am not a CA. Okay. In fact, it has been 2 years since I shifted to
Hmm.
Dubai. It took me 6 months to just understand the concept of a non-resident Indian.
Hmm.
There are multiple laws in play. Unfortunately, the overall rule book and laws are not consumer friendly, or let's say idiot friendly, right? so that everyone can understand it, which is why there is a need for chartered accountants
Hmm.
to help us understand the law and make sure we're on the right side of it, right? But even then, what I've realized, and this is real, Kasim, I think there's a big opportunity for you. There are very few chartered accountants, even in India, that understand NRI laws, right?
That's very strange, Rishi.
Very few.
Hmm.
Because you would realize that you're talking about it, and I have received 5 different consultations where someone is telling me I am a resident, where someone is telling me I am a non-resident, someone says I have to pay taxes, someone says I don't have
But
to.
Rishi, is this the problem with the complication of the law, or is this a problem with the CAs
I
out
think
there?
it's both.
Okay.
I
The
think it's both.
the law is very complicated, no doubt.
Hmm.
Then there comes the interpretation.
Hmm.
The law is very much based on the interpretation. Then again, it is driven by the case laws. I mean, interestingly, since last year, very interesting case law has come up, which says that if a UAE resident who is an NRI is investing in Indian mutual funds, so any gains he make out of them are not taxable in India. So that
That's
changed the
beneficial to
whole
them. Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is
So
actually a very big ruling.
it is a very big
But
ruling.
my question is, if NRI is earning from UAE and he's also earning in India through some other ways,
Yes,
passive or active, whatever, that income is taxable or not,
that is
whatever is earned
absolutely
from
taxable.
India.
So as a thumb rule for an NRI, any income which is earned in and accrued in India, that is taxable.
Okay.
Whatever you are earning from India, you have to pay taxes on India in India for
Okay.
that income. As simple as that.
There are a lot of benefits to being a non-resident Indian. Like he said, mutual funds are not taxed. I happen to have fixed deposits back home in India. The interest that comes from fixed deposits for non-resident Indians, non-taxable.
I need to just add one thing that fixed deposits again are two types. One is through the NRO account and one is through the NRE account. So the fixed deposits done through the NRE account does not tax in India. But the interest on the NR fixed deposits done through NRO accounts, that is taxable in India.
So if
Can
I
you
were to put it
can you
simply,
differentiate
yeah, I will
NRO
put it
and
simply, and then
yeah,
if you want, you can
yeah.
get it. So NRO account is like your normal Indian account,
Hmm.
which is something where you don't want to send money to or use overall.
Hmm.
That is just to make sure that if you had any money in India, you keep it.
Okay.
The NRE account is the account where you can send money which is repatriatable, right?
Hmm.
So you can
Hmm.
also bring it back. It is a global money, let's say. It's not Indian earned income, it's UAE or Dubai earned income that you're sending, but you can also bring back, which is what is not taxable. The logic on it is very simple. The country wants its citizens to bring money from other countries and invest in India. That is the logic of this NRE account. That's all.
So there should be a separate bank account for that, or
Yeah. So
Yes,
it's
yes.
two,
okay,
they
okay,
come together, right?
okay,
Basically, NRO is just the savings account for the non-resident.
Yeah.
okay,
That's it. Because savings accounts are not permitted to be kept once you are an NRI, as per the
okay.
Indian laws.
So
That
that
is illegal.
becomes NRO
Yeah,
account.
your
So,
old accounts
so
gets
you're
converted
yes,
to
you
an
have to
NRO.
convert to the NRO account.
So there is a treaty between UAE and India. That's the
Yes.
the
Double
taxation
taxation
treaty.
avoidance
What
agreement.
is the
Yes.
benefit other than like, of course, you are not being taxed in the UAE on anything, but the money you taken back to your home country, that's also not being taxed.
That is
We are
also not
clear.
taxed.
What are other benefits of
Like
that?
the was most important benefit, I said that you are not going to be taxed on the recently mutual funds, which is one important thing.
That's
Any
yeah.
capital gains which are arising apart from a movable property and capital gains on shares, those taxes are exempt. That is one important thing. Then there are certain other benefits for the professional fees being paid. If it is my business income here, then no TDS will be deducted back in India. TDS is again a kind of tax which is
Mm,
deducted when I pay you some amount.
Hmm.
right.
So that tax will also not be deducted in India if they are paying me in Dubai. So these are
Okay.
I'll be able to get benefit of these things because of the DTAA between the two countries, which is
Interesting.
double taxation avoidance
And
agreement.
this agreement is there with India has it with multiple countries.
Almost 190 agreements
But
are
with
there.
UAE it happens to have this special relationship, right? There's a few a little
Because
more advantages.
there are no many other DTS double A's do have certain privileges. It depends between how the two countries negotiated between themselves.
Correct.
Also, one
S-
important thing which I need to tell here that most of the people who think that DT double A will automatically apply, it does not happen.
Mm.
You need to have TRC from Dubai. which is tax residency certificate. You have to obtain it from FTA, and then you have to submit it. Not just submit it, but you have to keep it with you ready whensoever the authority in India asks for it.
You need to obtain as an individual from FTA.
Yes, you need to
Okay.
obtain as an individual from FTA
Okay.
that you are the tax resident of Dubai.
And how can they obtain that?
You have to apply through the FTA portal.
Okay.
And then only a person who has been living here for at least 180 days is eligible to apply
Right.
for TRC. And interestingly, for Indian taxes, you have to apply two TRCs
Hmm.
because of the difference of the financial years. Indian financial year is covering 2 calendar years of Dubai.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So, for suppose for the latest year, they need to give TRC for 24 and also TRC for 25
Hmm.
to meet 24 25 obligations.
Right. Right. So, okay. This is from the individual perspective, and businesses have to follow their own. So,
Business
like
have to follow
there
their
is
own.
there's a separate rule for if you have a business income, how you can take
Correct.
back to the
But as an
country, and
individual today,
yeah,
if I were to put it very
yeah.
bluntly,
Hmm.
if I have come here, I earn a basic amount of salary
Yeah.
and I'm able to save a good amount of it and eventually start investing, I also end up having tax benefits, and there are ways to get those tax benefits. So, overall, if you come here with discipline and if you're able to have the right mindset and have those set practices, you can be on the path to build wealth.
UAE provides the best opportunity to anyone who is coming here.
It is an ocean of opportunities. You
You
just
can
need to dive
save
in.
taxes, you can earn money. You just need to be disciplined, and you need to follow the rules and just keep repeating what you are doing.
100%. And I'll say this, a lot of people think Dubai is very expensive.
Hmm.
It doesn't need to be. It can be, but it doesn't need to be. If you're smart enough to find the right places and right offers here, you'll end up saving a lot of money.
That's a good experience, Rishi, that you have shared with us. And one last thing that I would ask you for the viewers: is there any advice to people, those who are looking to save some money from the moment they are watching this podcast?
I think I would say download any budget tracking app,
Hmm.
right? And just start tracking your spend. Another thing that I like to do is I don't like to use, and I know this is against of
Hmm.
what I am saying, but I like to use cash, right? And this is when you're not in the credit phase of your journey, is like you're not ready, you haven't even started saving, and you don't have credit cards. Don't even use your debit card. Use hard cash.
Hmm.
Let it flow to your mind that you actually are giving something tangible to the person in return for value. Let it feel that you're paying, right? Let it show. Because when you have this card and you start paying, right? And this is again what we were talking about, you feel like nothing is happening. The exchange of value, it's not very visible.
Hmm.
So you don't realize how much you're spending, right? So if you're in the practice of starting to save, and this is not when you want a credit card, simply use cash and track the spends on an app. Make sure if you set a budget, if you're under it, well, good. Don't overspend on the next month. Just be happy that you've saved good this month and keep continuing on that habit.
It's like touch and feel, Rishi.
Correct.
How about you, Kasim?
I would say that you should be having a set obligation. You should have a saving. You should make it as an obligation for yourself.
Hmm.
You should feel that pressure that you have to save this much anyhow this month. This you have to inculcate in yourself. And like the Rishi said, this is one very good point Rishi made, that you have to feel that pain of cash going out. I agree 100% with Rishi that you have to feel that pain.
You have to have a pain.
It's your hard earned money at the end of the day. If you don't feel the pain of you having to spend it, then there's really something wrong, right?
Uh, I'm very thankful to you, both of you, Rishi and Kasim. And I will conclude with this: like, you need to have a tracker, budget tracker, and you can maintain a journal that Kasim you mentioned. With journal, you can keep writing. Where are you spending? Don't bother yourself with spending, but just write down, and the next day read that. So it might add a lot of value, and it can put you on the track gradually. So, guys, thank you so much for watching the podcast of today. Keep watching every Sunday. And if you believe that we have added any value to your life, just hit the subscribe button and stay tuned for the next. Bye bye.